Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I am Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas, joined by Bryan Leonard at B Leonard Sports and Adam Burke. Adam is at Skating Tripods. He's got the most unique Twitter name I've heard thus far. Guys, baseball season's right around the corner. Adam runs a little podcast, here and there called Bang the Book. If you guys aren't giving them a follow, at Bang the Book on Twitter, great follow there. And also a great listen if you don't know anything about baseball like me. We're going to talk about betting season win totals. Adam, I'm going to start with you in terms of what are you looking at when looking at a team over the course of a season?
Yeah, there are a lot of general things I try to look at first and foremost as a starting point, and then I get deeper into some of the individual players, individual statistics, and that type of stuff. And one of the most important things for me is you have to have depth. This is not the NBA. This is not a star-driven league where one player can take over a game. You have to have a lot of depth, both in the lineup and in the starting rotation, and also organizationally. You have to have prospects that can come up, make an impact late in the season. And you also want to know about the health of the organization. Are they going to be buyers? Are they going to be sellers? What might this team look like after the trade deadline? You're talking about a 162-game season. It's a 6-month bet. So you have to think about a lot of factors, not just in the short term, but in the long term as well.
Yeah, just take a look at the Dodgers. Right now they're worried about a couple of their starting pitchers are out. Everybody knows Kershaw. But that's one of the deepest organizations in starting pitching in baseball. And we've already seen that the Dodgers will go out and spend money at the end of the season. So if you're playing the Dodgers under because you think of their injuries, keep in mind they'll bring people in, whereas a team like Tampa Bay or Miami, those kind of teams, Baltimore, won't be doing that at the end of the season.
Another thing I really look at is you have to think about the strength of the division because teams play over 47% of their games against division opponents. So, that makes up a very big portion of the schedule, 76 games. So you want to see how they match up against those teams. Or is it a good pitching team in a bad hitting division, like our Indians, for example? That puts them in a more advantageous position. So for the Indians, they play 76 division games against teams that were under 500 last year, 117 of their 162 games overall against teams that were under 500. So you've got some strength of schedule things you can factor into the equation,
Any
too.
division specifically you're looking at for this year?
Certainly the AL Central. That also helps the Minnesota Twins quite a bit. And with the injuries the Indians have had, it's a little bit tougher for them now with Francisco Lindor off to a slow start, Jose Ramirez hurt, because that's the thing. They are a top-heavy type of team where they don't have the same offensive depth that other teams have. So I don't like to back, like the Angels, for example. I'll never play the Angels over because Mike Trout means so much to that team that if he gets hurt, the bet's dead in the water.
Yeah, he's talking about the Indians. Last year, they tore up the division. The division was very weak, but when they played teams outside the division, they had a losing record. So right now, if you look at what Cleveland did in the offseason, they got rid of some free agents. They couldn't afford to pay them. They're just trying to make it to the playoffs. And once you make it to the playoffs, it's a crapshoot. Anything can happen in the playoffs, and that's the way they're going into this season.
And one other point I want to make here is that if you're going to back a team from a season win total standpoint, and Bryan, I'm sure you know this, they have to win at home because there's home field advantage in football and college football, and there's home court advantage, but it's different in Major League Baseball because the dimensions are different, the environmental conditions are different, so teams can tailor their personnel to the ballpark that they play in. So if they're not capable of winning at home, they're not capable of going over a season win total because those are the games that they need to get.
Yeah, back when they used to have those cookie cutter stadiums where they had 3 or 4 of them all built the same way, a lot of them with artificial turf, the teams would have their team based on speed because that's what plays in that kind of situation. You don't see much artificial turf anymore, but that's a good point.
All right, Adam, give me a few win totals that you like for this 2019 MLB season.
This will bring a smile to Marco's face over there, but the Pittsburgh Pirates are actually a team I really like this year. There's not a whole lot of people talking about them. A lot of talk about the Cincinnati Reds who, revamped 60% of their starting rotation, added some guys in the lineup. A lot of people talk about the Cardinals and the Cubs every year. I think Pittsburgh is really underrated in that division. They've got a top 3 bullpen in baseball in my estimation. The lineup is good enough. The starting rotation is pretty solid, and they're one of those teams that has a very team-friendly park factor because PNC Park is a tough park for offense.
And you really only need them to win 50% of their games.
Right. Yeah, it helps. Their season win total is 77.5 here for this year, and they've got a full season of Chris Archer, who they picked up at the trade deadline. Jameson Taillon added a slider in late May, and he got a lot better, so they'll have a full season of that. They're just a team that nobody's talking about, and those are usually the types of teams I like to find.
Yeah, and there's no superstars on that team. The teams that have the superstars are the teams that everybody likes to bet on. They like to watch them.
And maybe
so
their season win total is a little
That's
juiced.
Exactly right.
Awesome. Okay, one more. I know you have an under here, and you're going to piss off all the Kansas City fans just like PR did all football season.
Yeah, I mean, for the Kansas City Royals, look, this is a fun team. It's going to be a really interesting team to watch. They're going to steal a lot of bases. The problem is you can't steal first base. You have to hit your way on or you have to draw a walk.
Touche, you can't steal I'm using that line. You can't steal first base.
And that's the thing. They're not going to get on base enough to really maximize the one big advantage that they have, and that's the running game, where they can steal bases, turn singles into doubles, doubles into triples, etc. They don't have a good pitching staff. They don't have a good bullpen. And, the Tigers are a team that has one of those good home park factor advantages that I mentioned. So it's not like they're going to run over them. The Twins are good. The Indians are good. So Royals under 69.5 is another one I'm looking at.
The Royals' bullpen's actually the worst in Major League Baseball. The one thing I will say on their behalf is they're one of the better defensive teams. And usually you find those teams that don't have a lot of money, your Oakland A's, your Tampa Bay Rays, your Kansas City Royals, they build on defense, and a lot of people don't pay any attention to that.
All right, Adam, any final word on the 2019 MLB season?
For everybody out there listening, just keep in mind that, this is a bet where you have to hold it for 6 months. So, you want to make sure that you're pretty confident in it, because that's, a financial resource that won't be available to you in your bankroll. So that's why you want to look for some of the things I talked about in the open, where it's not a team dependent on a couple of players to stay healthy or, a thin rotation, something like that. You have 6 months of hoping that this team plays well or, doesn't play well if you bet an under.
All right, great stuff from Bryan and Adam. You guys can check out Adam's 2019 MLB season betting preview. Comprehensive look at upcoming MLB season win totals and previews for all 30 teams, their divisions, their pennant and World Series futures, and it can all be found, the link below on Amazon.